Hello, grade 9. How are you today? I hope you all are safe and well. When we studied about investigating inheritance, we said that our features are influenced by the genes we inherit from our parents. And we said that our genes come in pairs and organisms can inherit two different versions of genes. Half of them from the father and half of them from the mother. So we can inherit their characteristics, like half of their characteristics from both sides. And we studied about selective breeding, and we said that selective breeding produces animals with specific features by controlling which animals produce offsprings, because we said that we need for the dominant genes to control, and we need to select these offsprings with the characteristics that we prefer and breed them together to get more not perfect genes, but more good or strong genes. And we said over many generations this can produce new varieties of plants and new breeds of animals. Today we will talk about developing a theory, how the theories of the scientists developed over time. So open your books on page 218, grab your highlighters and follow me, please. Developing a theory. Theories. Why are there so many different living things? So this is a good question for scientists. When they were discovering this world and these creatures and the life around them, they were asking, why do we have so many different living things? Why they don't look the same, all of them? As he struggled to answer his question, Charles Darwin developed one of the most important scientific theories we have, the theory of evolution. Charles Darwin is one of the scientists that created or developed a theory about evolution. Evolution means the developing of the organisms or of this world. Theories explain how or why things happen. There aren't many scientific theories because each theory explains a lot of observations and answer a lot of questions. So these are their theories. So theory, it's like something if I asked you, what do you think about something? So you will give me your opinion, but your opinion should be based on something scientific. So if you discovered something, that means it's a theory. So these are their theories, but they need to explain it, and they need to explain why things happen. If they explained it well, and if their evidence supported their explanations, that could be accepted, and these we can call them theories. So we have here an example. For example, cell theory states that all living things are made of cells. We use it to explain how living things stay alive, grow, develop, and reproduce. So we said these are this theory because these cells are still having their chemical reactions, and without these reactions they will not stay alive. And this that's how all organisms are alive, because they are made of cells, and these cells are growing, developing, reproducing all the time. We have here in a flow chart as the one that we are using for our projects. First we need to scientists make an observation or ask a question. Then they need to suggest a possible explanation. They need to consider evidence. Does it support the explanation or not? If it's yes, that means it's accepted. If it's not, you know what to do. That means we should go to another explanation. So most theories form gradually. Scientists collect observations and ask questions. They suggest possible explanations and collect evidence to support their ideas. If the evidence is strong enough, their ideas are accepted by another scientist. Their explanations may eventually link to form a new scientific theory. So this is about their theories. They need to make observations, or they need to ask their questions. They need to suggest explanations and prove it by considering these evidence. If their evidence supported, that means they will be accepted. and other scientists will they will agree that they will accept their ideas and their theories, and they can call it a theory, and sometimes these could be linked together to form a whole new scientific theory for all the scientists and for all the science. Okay, so how they make their observations and ask their questions. Darwin left university in 1831 and spent 5 years traveling around the world. Most of this time was spent exploring the coast of South Africa and the nearby Galapagos Islands. Galapagos Island is a volcanic island. It's like part of many islands in the Pacific Ocean, and it's considered one of the world's major destinations for wildlife viewing. It's isolated shelters for many plants and animals. Many of them you cannot find nowhere else. And Charles Darwin visited this island in 1835, and he developed his theory about evolution, and he was inspired for his theory of evolution. So he found fossils of giant mammals. They were similar to modern animals but not identical. One had skeleton as big as elephants, but it was similar to a sloth. Sloths are much smaller. Could the animals have changed over time? So this was his question, and he was thinking about this all the time. When he left the university, he spent 5 years traveling along the coast, and he found fossils for mammals, and he found a big one, but similar to the elephants, but the skeleton is big. It was like in the shape. It was like similar to the sloth, but the sloth is smaller because this skeleton that he found is big as the elephant skeleton. So he was thinking and asking himself, could these animals like change their shape and their characteristics over time or not? In Galapagos Islands, he found different mockingbirds on different islands. Could one type of bird produce 4 different species? So these are the mockingbirds. They are digging for food, as you can see here. They are digging for insects, and they have like different shapes. So he was asking, could one type of these birds like produce 4 different species, or like less different species, or not? Darwin also found many different finches. Finches, it's like kind of birds, is smaller than this one, and it has short beak. Some had short, strong beaks. They used them to crush nuts and seeds. Others used long, thin beaks to dig for insects. Could these finches share the same ancestors? So, as he traveled in these Galapagos Islands, he was searching for fossils, because he was searching for explanations for his suggestions, and he was observing skeletons. He was observing saw fossils. So when he was making his studies, he was studying these skeletons. So he found a skeleton for mockingbirds, and he found for finches. So he was thinking, and he was observing that some of them had short, strong beaks, and the others with long ones. So he was asking, could these finches share the same ancestors, or they do have like different ones? A possible explanation that he made, or other scientists made. A Scotch geologist called Charles Lyell published evidence that that Earth is very old. It showed that rock changed gradually over many years. Darwin thought that living things also changed with time. A storm blew the first finches to the Galapagos Islands. Over many generations, their beaks changed. Now their beak shape suit the food each species eats. But how could these changes happen? So when this Scotch geologist published his evidence, Darwin, he was thinking that all these living things changed over time, because he found the skeleton of the sloth, but it's big, and now the skeleton of the sloth is smaller. And he was thinking that a storm blew the first finches to Galapagos Islands, and over many years or many generations, these changed. Their beaks changed according to the food that they are eating. So if they found the food near to the surface, that means their beaks will be small, and if they couldn't find and trying to dig more and more, that could be changing. That could change over the years or over generations. They could develop a long ones. And he was still asking, how could these changes happen over time? Evidence. Darwin collected evidence about selective breeding. He realized that some sort of selection always takes place. Most of a plant or animal's offspring don't survive. They compete with each other to survive and reproduce. This is natural selection. So what is the natural selection? When species or when offsprings compete together for food or to survive. So this is natural selection. So Darwin, he was collecting evidence about this selective breeding, and he said that some sort of selection always takes place. So this is like selective breeding, but it's natural selection. So the strong ones will survive and the weak ones will die. So if these strong ones have offsprings, that means they will have stronger features, more developed features and good ones, and their offsprings over generations, they will just only pass the good ones, the stronger ones. Natural selection relies on survival of the fittest. So the strongest ones and the fittest ones, they will survive. That's why they call it the natural selection. No one is selecting the offsprings, but the strong ones survive. The finches in each group compete for a particular type of food. The finches with the most well-adapted beaks get more food, so they are more likely to survive. They pass their useful characteristics to future generations. Over many generations, each group of finches evolves into a different species with a different beak shape. So this was, as I said, I was explaining, that the strong ones will survive, or the fittest one will survive, because they have adapted beaks to get more food, and the weak ones will die. So these offsprings, they will breed together and they will pass their good features or characteristics or useful ones to the next generations, and this generation will pass it to the next ones. So over these generations, each group finches evolve into different species with a different beak shape, because as we said, they compete for a particular type of food, so their beak will be adapted to the food that they are looking for or they are eating. Stronger evidence. Soon after Darwin published his theory, Mendel published the results of his experiments about the the experiment that we talked about the seeds of the plants that he was selecting, which working on pea plants to reproduce offsprings, and he was like he was choosing the good features to breed them together, and this was like seeing the inheritance. And this then he published his results about this experiment. Unfortunately, Darwin never heard about Mendel's work. It would have strengthened his theory by showing how characteristics can be inherited. So scientists, if they work together, or if they heard about their works or other scientists' work, they could have support by evidence or work or approved work from other scientists, and they can develop their theories. Since then, many other scientists have added explanations and evidence to Darwin's theory. We now know that genes control inherited characteristics. We also know that genes are made of what genes are made of and how they are passed to future generations. So because of these scientists and their works and when they published their works, and other scientists added another theories to their theories, and they proved it. So now we know that how these characteristics are inherited, and how these characteristics are passed from one generation to another, and how the life or the characteristics developed over years and over generations. So now let's go to the summary of the lesson, please. Developing a theory. Developing a theory involves making observations, asking questions, suggesting explanations, and gathering evidence to support them. And as we said earlier and before even in all our inquiries, that if this evidence supported your explanations, that means it's accepted, and that means you're proving them. And if it's not, that means you need to go to another explanations. Theories explain how or why things happen. So this was all about developing a theory. I hope you understood the lesson and enjoy it. Don't forget to write these notes in your notebooks, and don't forget the yellow box as usual. So I hope to see you soon, and we will meet in a new lesson. Bye bye.